coming to get you, Barbara.
Here's some money. Go see a Star War.
But I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
Welcome back to Long Walk Talks. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am doing this intro because Chris didn't want to do it even though it's his turn. So as always, I am joined this evening by my two co-hosts, Stan Wilson Lee
Yoo-hoo.
and Chris Wilson Barnes.
It's weird. I didn't think you'd get tired of hearing your own voice.
You know, you would think that. We are going to be continuing our Perfect Tens discussion. This time it is up to Chris to pick the next 4 films that we do after coming off hot from the films that Stan picked, which were very divisive among us and our listeners as well.
Really?
Yes, there were a lot of hard thoughts. Chris, what is the first film in your Perfect Tens lineup?
Well, since it's up to me to save this podcast, I decided I would have some fun with it, and we're going to do Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn this over to you since you came up with the topics. So why don't you start us off with our very first one?
All right. Well, I'll start with a general question. How familiar are you guys with the show?
I am familiar with it through you. I've only ever watched the show when hanging out with you.
Stan?
I may have seen 1 or 2 episodes of the show.
Super enthusiastic about it.
Do you remember which ones you saw?
I have no clue. I was probably stoned out of my mind because that would be probably the reason why I would watch it.
That makes sense.
No? All right. So I'm going to start with a basic rundown of the history of the show, just to give you guys an idea, because this has been a long-standing cult classic.
Mm-hmm.
When I say decades, I mean decades, because it started back in, I want to say, the late 80s with Joel Hodgson, the creator. He came up with the idea for the show and got the okay for it back when he was working for a local studio in, I can't remember, it's in the Midwest, like I want to say Michigan or around that area, called KTMA. And he started doing the show, basically got the groundwork for it worked out, and it caught on because people from the area were getting into it, and they started, sending tapes of it around to people, like relatives and friends around the country, and they started getting into it as well. And it really caught on when Comedy Central was starting up. They were called the Comedy Channel back then, and they were looking for content, and I think they got their hand on some of the KTMA tapes. So they called up Joel Hodgson and offered to buy the show and put it on Comedy Central, which was where it got its big platform at the time. It's still not huge because that was cable network and it still wasn't widespread yet. So the tape trading really helped it take off and become a big cult classic. And they spent, out after KTMA, they spent the first 7 seasons of the show on Comedy Central. And that was the time period when the movie happened. The first 6, Joel was there for the first 5 seasons. 4 seasons and like half of the 5th season, because in the middle, he decided he decided to bow out, and that's when the change happened from Joel Hodgson to Mike Nelson, and then Mike Nelson jumped in by the end, and by the end of the 6th season, that's when they were given the, I forget how it happened, but they got the call that they were willing to do a full-length movie for them.
I can say I was going to ask you about Joel Hodgson because the episodes I did see would be with Joel, so that's how early it was when I saw it. So, because I wondered about that in the movie, watching the movie, like, where's Joel Hodgson?
I'm not going to try and stir things up because I jumped in, or I saw glimpses of it when I was younger, well before I was able to watch it regularly. And so I saw some Joel episodes, and I saw some of the Mike episodes, and I was always more enthused by the Mike episodes. And I'm going to leave it there because one of the biggest raging debates in the fandom of Mystery Science Theater is who was better, Joel or Mike. it caused legit flame wars.
Well, yeah, the idea of a fandom starting a flame war over something like that is completely unheard of.
Oh yeah, never really happens. It was a weird one-time thing. That certainly didn't happen later that I'll get to.
The internet is usually a very calm and reasonable place to be.
So they got through the end of 7 seasons on Comedy Central, and they didn't get renewed there. But as the Sci-Fi Channel was expanding into other markets, they picked up Mystery Science Theater, and it ran for its final 3 seasons, 8 through 10, on there. And then that was the end, or most people thought, for a while, and then other projects started happening. In the meantime, Joel Hodgson was working on other things. They did live shows from time to time. And then as time moved on, there were other projects that started up, like Joel Hodgson's cinematic Titanic, Riff Tracks, which is still going strong today. It continued on and on until Shout Factory got the license for the show, and they're putting out the DVDs and they probably got the most episodes that will ever be out on DVD because of how hard they work for rights holders and stuff. And then during that time, interest spiked again. To the point where in 2015, with help from Shout Factory, Joel Hodgson got the full rights back to the series and immediately launched a Kickstarter for more Mystery Science Theater, which blew out its funding goal in like a day. So they were able to bring back Mystery Science Theater for 2 more seasons on Netflix. This time, the host was Jonah Heston, played by comedian Jonah Ray Rodriguez. And
Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt's on there. Actually, I'll get more into that in a bit. But so they ran for 2 more seasons on Netflix, and then it stopped again. And then over the past year or so, they ran another Kickstarter. And MST3K. It's funny that we're doing this in May because they ran another Kickstarter, like I said, blew out the goal again, and now they are running their own streaming service via an MST3K app called the Gizmoplex, where you can stream all the classic episodes, and they just started a new season, and
nice.
that they're going to be running for the foreseeable future. So that's the basic history of the show.
Very nice. And I just recently over the weekend discovered that the Pluto app on TV has an entire channel dedicated to nothing but Mystery Science Theater and Riff Tracks.
Yep.
So if you've got Pluto TV, download that, and you can watch a whole channel of this.
And another good place to start is YouTube. You can literally go, with the first 10 seasons at least, you can literally go plug in any of the titles that you're interested in, and you'll be able to watch it on YouTube because Best Brains, the people in charge of it, have never cracked down on that kind of thing.
Wow, nice.
Because that's how they got their notoriety, because people tape circulating. Mm-hmm. And in fact, in the end of their credits, they would always say, keep circulating the tape. So they've always been very kind and generous about people, being able to see their stuff and get into it.
Nice. Yeah, I know this is a huge phenomenon. It became a huge phenomenon. You're not the only person I know that's in love with it. We've worked with several people in the past who were as well. Like I said, I've only ever watched it with you. It's not something I ever really got into on my own. But, yeah.
After all that, let's just go through the very basic premise of the show.
Okay.
Super simple. Actually, they did that on purpose because Mystery Science Theater is based on, and if you guys want to chime in anytime you can. I realize I'm monopolizing things, but...
No, it's your episode.
I understand.
Your picks.
I know, I'm super excited. Like I said, this is the first time I've been able to talk at length about it. So,
or on any of these podcasts, like after all the Tarantino and Christopher Nolan that we've subjected you to, you really get to shine in this one.
It's Butter's very own episode. Yeah, so the premise is very simple, and it was that way for a reason, because it's based on all of the local market, basically like the horror kind of shows. Like they would have a host who would basically be in the intro and do minor host segments, when throwing it to the Saturday afternoon movie, like Svengoolie and stuff like that.
Elvira.
Yeah, exactly. The same kind of premise, except the idea was they would also be there during the movie making quips. So the very basic idea is Joel Hodgson, playing a character named Joel Robinson, is trapped in space by originally it was 2 scientists, Dr. Forrester and Dr. Earhart. They as I will say this: if you ever want to learn the premise fully, just watch every version of the theme song, because the theme song is like a classic sitcom theme song where you get the entire premise start to finish. And they've updated it for every iteration of the show. But it was originally those two scientists. They conked him on the noggin and they shot him into space. And the idea is they're showing him the worst movies they can find. They want to find the movie that will ultimately break him down, and then they'll unleash it on the public and take over the world. But Joel got lonely up in space, so he took a bunch of the machinery from the satellite, mostly the ones, as it says in the song, that control where the movies begin and end. He turned them into robot friends to be with, so he wouldn't go crazy up in space.
Nice. Now, Elon Musk hasn't made any sort of announcements about like purchasing up movie rights or buying a studio or anything like that, has he?
I don't know, but keep an eye on it.
Yeah, because if that happens, I'm getting rid of all my electronics and living underground.
He's the level of insane blowhard that would be the antagonist on Mystery Science Theater. Mm-hmm. He exactly is.
For all we know, SpaceX could be for the express purpose of kidnapping somebody, sending them to space, and forcing them to watch bad movies to see what happens.
Like, I wouldn't put it
for
past
science.
I wouldn't put it past Mystery Science Theater to suddenly have like the antagonist benefactor be an Elon Musk type. It would be perfect.
Speaking of which, Stan, I've got this application for you to fill out after we're done recording.
Oh, who says I haven't already filled it out?
You would be the kind who want to go to space to watch bad movies, wouldn't you?
Well, I think it's more.
He would argue about how bad they really
start
are.
a new race forcibly,
Forcibly?
You think you're getting into the breeding program, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna gloss right over his use of the word forcibly when starting a new race.
Like they're putting a gun to his head.
Right.
Well, I mean, he's forcing people to get together to create a new race. That's his way,
Anyway, back to my fun show program. So
I'm still stuck.
It went from there for it was Joel trapped in space, and then when Joel Hodgson decided to bow out and Mike Nelson came in, it was Joel manages to escape during an episode by the end of it. So what do? They turn around and at this point it's Dr. Forrester and his sidekick is TV's Frank, which is just a genius name. It's just like there's no other explanation. He's just TV's Frank. Like they would refer to old TV stars back in the day as like he's TV's such and such.
Right.
As where you would know them from. So. So at that point, they kind of worked it in as like, oh, Mike Nelson's basically a temp worker. They're helping them sort stuff out in their bunker they call Deep 13, which was where things had moved to at that point. So he's the replacement. So they knock him out, shoot him up into space, and he's up there. And then he's up there through the next few seasons. At the end of season 6, TV's Frank departs. Frank Conniff leaves the show, and so by the time the movie happens, which as you saw, it was just Dr. Forrester, and then after that they do season 7, which is a short one. I think it was all that Comedy Central would give them. They only gave them like 7 episodes for season 7, and it was going to be. They honestly thought they were going to be done after that. Also, if you ever want to see the cast's thoughts on making the movie. Or how that went, how they felt that went. Watch the host segments from season 7, episode 1. They have a very becomes very clear what they thought of the movie making process in Hollywood.
I'm going to go on a limb by context and guess they were not fans.
Oh no, it was a miserable experience for them, and it's funny that I think what helped them in the long run, and especially kept their attitude about this, is the fact that when Comedy Central picked up their show, they offered to move them all to L.A. and make the show there, but they were like, no, we want to stay where we are. And I think staying in the Midwest really helped keep a good attitude towards that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because robots in Hollywood do have a bad habit of getting on drugs, and I would hate to see that happen to Crow and the other one whose name I can't remember.
Tom Servo.
Tom Servo.
And then the other one that looks like a vacuum cleaner, whose name I can't remember.
Gypsy,
thank you.
Gypsy until they renamed her, yeah.
I was going to say, can't say Gypsy. The robot formerly known as Gypsy.
I said Gypsy, but I think I got away with it. Yes. And then so season 7, it was Dr. Forrester and his mother.
I was going to say, when I watched this movie the other night, during all the mad scientist segments, I was like, I seem to remember there being more evil scientists.
Yeah, it goes, because it was just happened to be, by the time they got to the movie, that's just who was there. Like they didn't want to bother introducing another character. So it was Dr. Forrester and his mother. And here's where things are funny. Since they thought the show was ending for real, the ending they went with at the end of season 7 was basically a 2001 ending where somehow everyone turns to light and becomes non-corporeal beings and fly off. And there's, like I said, a big 2001 ending.
Which is what the beginning of the movie is a big reference to.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. Which I always love the slow reveal that Mike's running on basically a giant hamster wheel.
Yeah, the water bottle really sold that.
And so when they came back for season 8, they were like, well, how do we undo this? So they all end up back at the Satellite of Love and become corporeal again. Only it turns out the satellite is orbiting the Earth hundreds of years in the future, and the Planet of the Apes future happened. So
you blew it all up.
So, well, and what's funny about this, Sci-Fi wanted them to have more story arc in the host segments. So it was like, that's not the point. So here's what happens, and this only happens over the course of 3 seasons, 8, 9, and 10. So it goes from Planet of the Apes, where it's like, oh, they're still doing the experiment for some reason. Well, it turns out the reason is Pearl Forrester was frozen sometime in the past, and they defrosted her. Now she's the lawgiver who runs the Ape Society. Mike Nelson formulates a plan to escape from get Satellite of Love away from Earth. He actually blows up the Earth in the process.
It had it coming, let's be honest.
But they're not as free as they thought, because now they're being chased by Pearl and Bobo, one of the head scientists, Professor Bobo, in a rocket-powered VW bus.
And see, that's what I remember from watching with you, is because I was like, wasn't there like a Planet of the Apes monkey involved in this somehow? I thought maybe I just hallucinated.
Nope. And then they pick up a third straggler because they end up on a planet of. They're supposed to be non-corporeal. They're called the observers, and they have all their brains in pans. But then they have these bodies that hold the brains for them. So essentially, they don't have bodies, but they do have bodies. And then Mike, in order to escape the planet of the observers, accidentally blows them up. And one of the observers tags along, and that becomes the 3 antagonist characters for the rest of the series.
So what you're saying is Mike Nelson is responsible for not 1, but 2 genocides.
He's put on trial later for it in an episode, and yes, he does earn the tagline, Mike Nelson, Destroyer of Worlds.
Fantastic.
He blows their planet up with a makeshift homemade baking soda volcano that he overcharges somehow.
It's every high school science teacher's worst nightmare.
They go in through a wormhole, end up in Roman times, and then somehow travel through time once more, and then the rest of the series pans out with them at the ancestral Forrester Castle home, where the story ends until the very last episode, where Pearl, playing with a joystick that controls the satellite's movements, barrel rolls them and accidentally hits the button that causes re-entry protocol, which is non-reversible, and so the satellite ends up landing and they get back to Earth.
That is a fucking journey.
Yeah.
For a show about people watching terrible movies.
Oh yeah, it's great because in between all that, they still have the movies. And then later, when the new seasons pick up, it's because Kinga Forrester, and I'm not sure how she's directly related. I think she's somehow Forrester's kid. Has an operation on the moon where she suckers in Jonah's character, working with TV's son of TV's Frank, which is Max, played by Patton Oswalt. Captures him and makes him live in the satellite and watch movies. And then now, with the new season just starting up, they also have, for the first time, a female host. Her name is Emily, I think. And they're splitting the hosting duties between Jonah and her.
Interesting.
Because she was when they did the road shows, she was one of the hosts there, and they made sure to give her a spot on the new seasons.
Okay.
And that's the very simple premise of Mystery Science Theater.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I knew bits and pieces just from you and from cultural osmosis.
That's how I learned a lot of stuff I haven't seen before too.
Yeah. All right, so what have we got next?
So so now having said all of that, I wanted to get your thoughts on riffing in general, the idea of what they do while they, joke about movies.
I mean, I feel like it is something that most people lapse into depending on the quality of a movie. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I have sat down to have a serious discussion, or not to have a serious discussion, but to watch a movie with every intent of taking it seriously, only to end up whoever I'm watching it with just rip it to shreds.
And not even it's not even necessarily a movie you hate either.
Right. It can just be one that you've seen enough times.
Yeah.
Staniel?
I probably the same thing. It's like it's kind of a natural reaction if it turns out to be a lot of questions in the movie, that are left unanswered. It's like, it's time to start talking about this. And
because they're certainly not.
How does the money plane work exactly?
That's the best example ever.
Yeah, now see, at one point...
If we talk about money plane again, yes.
Yeah, now see, I actually did kind of want to do like maybe a live thing or a pre-recorded thing where all of the hosts on this show would have actually sat down to watch Money Plane together, but there was kind of a pandemic happening when we recorded that episode, so we had to split everyone up into smaller groups. But I think that would be fun to get the three of us, Dogs, Shelby, Gina,
absolutely.
Katie, get all of us together to just pick a god-awful movie, anything but Birdemic.
That's what we do on any given wrestling pay-per-view.
I mean, yeah, we could turn any episode of This Is a Work into a Mystery Science Theater. It'd be a very long, frustrating episode filled with a lot of swearing, but we could do it.
But Dave, you really hit on what I love about riffing, and I think what got me about it is the fact that it's the refined, best version of just sitting on a couch with friends and just tossing out one-liners. Because it's like in the very beginning, it was improv on the show, and I think they very quickly decided, well, no, we're going to do better if we sit down. They watch the movie over and over, and they time code it, and they refine their jokes. And nowadays it's it's a very we've got the riff for this moment and this moment, and I think it's very well done. And
a very long time ago, it feels like you brought over to my old apartment a copy of The Room, and we sat down with a whole bunch of people to take in this cinematic masterpiece of Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau's.
And then about halfway through it, everyone had, I feel riffed themselves out to the point where no one was actually even watching the movie anymore. It was such an extraordinary level of bad that even riffing it, we couldn't. With that many people involved, we couldn't even keep enjoying how bad the movie was.
There was so much flying at you with that movie that without taking breaks, you just it's almost impenetrable unless you're dedicated to going at it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in general, if it's a movie I've seen enough times or if it's a movie that's exceptionally bad, I'm a big fan of riffing on movies.
Yeah, I like that. And it's it flows well into the next topic, which I'll get to in a second. But it's I like the fact that it's even if it's a good movie, it's not unassailable. For instance, riff tracks as an experiment or just to make a point, they did a riff tracks, which I should say is They do video on demand versions, but they also have what's called just the jokes, where they have a commentary track that you line up with the movie, with the movie time code, and you just let it go, and it times out to where their comments are at the right moments. And they did one for Casablanca, and just as the point of we know this is a great movie, we love it, but we can also crack jokes about it.
Yeah,
it's not just the horrible movies; it's something fun to do. And you don't have to tear down the movie to have fun with it. But that does lead into my next topic. It's what is, and I called it the unriffable. And I was aside from extreme subjects, you wouldn't do a riff of Schindler's List. Clearly. Stop looking at me like that. You wouldn't do.
Well, now I want to try.
No, that is not a challenge. But it's
bonus episode.
That's why I worded aside from obvious extreme subjects, where would you draw the line on what's able to riff? Like, what would you be like, I don't want to just crack wise during this. I do want to just sit down and enjoy it.
Passion of the Christ.
I wouldn't be beyond that, honestly.
Everyone knows that I wouldn't be either. When Stan and I were reading the topics the other day, of course, the very first one that I went to was like, I'd love to see you try to riff a Serbian film.
No, that was the thought of like, don't.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
and I said that's why I said aside from obvious extreme subjects.
and you can't really. My thing is that you shouldn't take like something like Spike Lee stuff. Especially us.
I was going to say we, the three white men in this room.
But the thing is that I don't think films with really powerful messages of positivity and or growth and progress should be leveled with critical thought, yes, but the idea that we're riffing to find the funny parts and to make funny statements about this movie that's, it's like she's got to have it, it shouldn't be done. Do the right thing should not be done because it diminishes the strength of, especially if we're going to make it a public thing. Do not riff on something that has a very positive, progressive message that the riffing will diminish. And that the riffing will take over the message. I don't believe something like that should be done. And that's why I'm saying, we could pick on Passion of the Christ, but I mean...
Don't challenge me, motherfucker.
But the thing is that it shouldn't be done. I mean, I'm not saying that it probably can't be done, but it's like... It diminishes you as well as you would diminish the overall arcing message of the movie.
That's a fucking bold statement.
It does.
So what
because I wouldn't, and it's like I wouldn't say we shouldn't riff Last Temptation of Christ, which has been protested, and maybe the message should be protested. But the thing is, the message that actually comes out of that movie is such that is about love and progress and beauty.
And Harvey Keitel, New York accent, biblical tongue.
But still, that would be one thing that we would riff on, but it shouldn't be because even though he's using the dialect, the message is still powerful enough to be, and once you start riffing on that, it diminishes the power of the message.
You're telling me.
So it's like, yes, dude, it's like if you take something like a trauma film or something, which I love and I respect and I'm a fan of, but trauma films can be riffed upon. But it's like I would not take something that's about the progress of humanity and riff upon that. And that's just me.
You're telling me that I couldn't take Sam Raimi's Green Goblin's lines from the first Spider-Man film and dub them over dub them over Willem Dafoe in The Last Temptation of Christ, and it wouldn't be hilarious for Jesus of Nazareth
I
to
would
say...
be pissed off.
Who would he call Spider-Man?
For Jesus of Nazareth to say,
off.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
So what I'm hearing is they shouldn't have ripped Birdemic because that is very much a strong environmental message.
Well, it tried to be. Strong is a
it was strong.
Strong word.
You should be strong in the horrible way.
Zombievers shouldn't be riffed.
No, because Zombievers is a cinematic masterpiece.
It is.
I'm adding that to my list of perfect tens when it's my turn.
Stan's trying to troll me, and it's not going to work.
No,
he's trying to riff with you.
No,
but no. That's my thing. Is that if I was involved in a part where a group of folks were riffing upon something like Last Temptation or even Passion of the Christ, I would have to leave the room because there's a message there that is supposed to be released, and the riffing will only diminish it. So, and I think those messages should, and it's like, do the right thing. It's like, yeah, you might comment about the violence or the use of certain words and language, whatever, but that's again critical thought and critical responses. But the idea that you're going to start making fun of moments in that and diminish the power of the message, fuck that, But that, again, that's me.
Now, you're aware of course, that at one point in our lives we all started a web series about a web series called The Diary of Stan Frank, right? In which
we were riffing on ourselves.
In which you played the title character of Stan Frank.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just as
But
long
we
as we're
did
aware.
not. We did not diminish the power of the Diary of Anne Frank. We diminished ourselves, and we made fun of ourselves, because the difference between that show and specifically riffing on movies with messages is that it was us that was actually being riffed upon. You know, we were hyper real versions of ourselves and hyper dumb versions of ourselves, and that's what we were riffing on. The idea that creative people like us would attempt to do this, and the stupidity, the absurdity of the attempt is what we were riffing on. And it's like, and we were very blatant about how, and you know, Chris was the voice of that, was how blatantly awful our stuff was, you know, and it was a riff upon ourselves as creative people, as filmmakers, whatever. And we as the series went on, we responded to that, and we grew as a group.
How rare it is for Chris to be the voice of reason among the three of us. But we'll move on to the next topic in a second. But what I'm hearing is that you are not going to join me and Chris for our annual rewatch of American History X.
That is definitely not riffable.
I don't know.
I'll disagree, because
no,
usually
it's not riffable because
I'll take a shot at it.
you guys can. I will
the
not
lines
riff
are different for everybody, but usually the best spirit of riffing is it stays in logic with the movie, and it's usually making fun of the characters for the decisions they're making when they're bad ones or bad people. I mean, it's never just trash the movie, tear down everything.
But that's the movie.
Well, no, it's not.
Is the bad decisions that people make, and then finding a way to positively respond from those, and then because those early actions were so intense that you lose people, that you know. So it's like that's yes, I would miss that opportunity. So
again,
you guys are welcome to go for it, but I would not.
It's nice of you to cast us as the callous bastards that
No,
you think we are.
I wouldn't.
Apparently.
I wouldn't. That's not what I'm doing. It's like I couldn't do that.
It's about,
because I would find every moment.
It's about lines. It's like I said, I would never approve of a riff of Schindler's List, but probably if done well, Life is Beautiful.
Well, Life is Beautiful kind of does it on itself, but again,
No.
I probably
they gave that man an Oscar.
I would not. I think Roberto Benigni should be riffed upon, sure,
And he would be, thoroughly.
but the idea that I would not participate in riffing of that movie either, because of the, you know, it being about, you know, the decimation of and the genocide of a people. So.
And I also would have to decline the opportunity to riff on Life is Beautiful, mainly because Katie loves that movie, and I wouldn't have a home to go back to.
I'm just saying, no, I'm not saying we are. Why does everyone think I'm penciling this into a calendar somewhere?
Because I am.
Oh, okay. No, it's just, I'm saying there's the line. It's like no on one is like, but you can. There's wiggle room. It's like I think I get it.
This is the most heated I've seen you on any of these podcasts, Dan.
I think there are, like I said, I brought up Trauma. I'm a fan. I love the movies, but Toxic Avenger, yes, riff upon it. Terra Firma, yes, it's got Ron Jeremy in it, but it's fucking hilarious, and it is an environmental comment. You know, it's like, yes, a riff upon it. The Chicken movie, yes, riff upon it.
The Chicken movie?
Don't ask him to explain.
Trauma's War, yes, riff upon it. But
Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, yes,
Stop,
riff,
now we're
but
just
it's
Roman titles.
But the idea that yes, they welcome the riff, but they do have messages that they are putting out there of progress. But the idea that they know what they are, and it's like they know that yes, we are riffable. So it's like yes, we can riff upon those, but it's really hard. It's like I would even consider riffing E.T. which
Yes.
I think is one of the greatest movies
Absolutely.
of all time. But because there's
E.T.'s
certain,
never off the table.
when he screams and Gertie screams at the same time, that's a hilariously riffable moment. But the thing is, it's not overreaching and it's not overarching in its message that if we riffed upon a moment in E.T. that we're
Maybe don't
diminishing.
kill aliens when they visit us.
Exactly. Don't kill aliens. But we are not diminishing. We're not diminishing because we could also riff upon the change between taking the guns away and replacing them with keys.
Yes.
That's riffable.
Or flashlights.
Or flashlights. That's
Right.
riffable. You know, it's like
You are describing the way this could work. Yes.
yeah, but it's still we're not diminishing the message. But if we riff on something like "Do the Right Thing" or something like that, that is diminishing a message that should not be diminished.
Oh man, you know a movie I think we should talk about? The one we watched. So did you guys like it?
Again, Okay, so full disclosure.
Sure.
This Island Earth is
Yeah.
such an egregiously boring film. I fell asleep
that's-
during the non-host segments
That's
portion.
honestly kind of funny because one of the controversies of this movie getting made was people getting mad that they would take on such a classic.
Right. It was the movie that was supposedly unriffable. Yeah. I could not help it. I had
That's fine. It's a very dry movie, despite being about aliens.
I drank a Red Bull immediately prior. I'm not exaggerating.
I know.
Immediately prior to watching this movie, still was put to sleep by This Island Earth.
Stan?
If they were going to make a feature, I think Mystery Science Theory 1000 is perfect for whatever hour long,
Hour and a half
television episodes that they are, and it's fine. But I still think they should, if they are writing their riffs,
They are.
They should have wrote better ones for a feature movie. I thought the riffing was if they're professional riffers, so I think it was almost amateurish.
They did
and
not have
riffs.
100% control over it.
Then-
Again, this was, on their show they have final say, but they were dealing with a studio this time around.
Then again,
That's why they put
yes.
out a feature that was 74 minutes.
And that was the longest 74 minutes ever.
That's a shame.
And the thing is, I'm a fan of This Island Earth, or I thought I was.
Until you watched
when I watched it, because I grew up with This Island Earth, and I didn't remember it being so awful. But of course I was 12 when I saw it the first time, and before I had any kind of idea of But the idea of when it was made and everything like that. It is a classic movie. It's up there with it's not quite Thing from Outer Space, but the idea that the quality of filmmaking was in the same area. It's right after Godzilla, so the idea of people in rubber suits wasn't a bad idea, and it's like, and again, the subject matter is probably pretty profound, and it's like, so I remember it being better.
This movie had subject matter? And I don't mean Mystery Science Theater. I mean This Island Earth had subject matter?
But I did notice, oh, wow, okay, maybe, yeah, of course, it's not unriffable. It's totally riffable.
It's a standard Cold War. If you're not careful, nuclear energy will
exactly.
destroy us all.
Exactly, and because there were moments, it's like when they're exploring the whole, that they're gathering an international team and the whole.
So that's squirrel pudding.
So the idea that it's okay that nobody understands each other's language. They have the language of physics and they have the language of science and stuff, and they still can work together to come to a common goal.
I will say it was really interesting when Vin Diesel showed up and started calling everyone family. That might have been my favorite part of the movie.
Vin Diesel's in it?
Was I asleep during that part?
Are you
Maybe
asleep
I was.
right now?
If you're going to riff that movie,
They did.
it should have been better riffs. If
You're suggesting that to the wrong
shortchanged.
person.
They were shortchanged in what they could have done if they were taken out of the writing process.
Inserting the breakfast pastry.
What have I wrought by?
Well, what have I wrought? Apparently, I have brought doom
I
upon
did
us
like
all.
the what was the name of the oscillate the machine,
The interocitor.
the interocitor, that it kept coming back and said, "Oh, I have an interocitor. I have an interocitor." When Tom Servo says, "I have one. Here it is," and then it blasts everybody apart. And I wasn't sure about them taking commercial breaks at times, so it's like they should have just continued, and I understood that the film broke, so it's go out and do something that's related to them as prisoners on the bone-shaped satellite. And
Yes, as I wrote in my notes, I watched the show countless times with you, Chris, and never once noticed that the satellite of love is a dog bone.
That's on you, isn't it?
It is. I'm not saying.
I
it's
thought
not.
it was a two double-headed dildos put together. I don't know, but
Boy, I got a good feeling about sharing my interests for the next 3 months. Let me tell you.
no, but no, it's like, I just wish they had a better opportunity to bring those to the feature level that they had.
Chris, the last 4 months, January through April, was let's judge Stan and his choices. So the next 4 months are let's judge Chris and his choices.
So am I just?
I know some of Chris's choices. They're fine. What the fuck?
Oh, they're fine. Okay.
They're fine.
No, yeah, no, I'm getting a big vibe of support from the both of you.
What?
So should I just
the amount of
so I just skip
for
the next
old
part
boy.
and do? So I just skip the next part, the favorite moments or anything? 'Cause it sounds like you slept through it and Stan was stewing through most of it.
No, I did have two favorite parts. Ironically, neither of them were riffs, however.
That's
One
fine.
was
One of
the,
my favorite parts is a host segment.
Yeah, it's the evil scientist introducing me to the phrase cinematic suppository.
Oh, that whole opening monologue is one of my favorites. I almost wanted to open the podcast with a version of that.
You should have. You still can. I can go back and re-record it.
Right?
My other one was the guy who played...
But before we do, did you guys, go?
Oh,
Yes.
Because I don't want to have to stop the podcast for,
well, I haven't. I need to go.
Yeah, we've been meaning to talk to you about that. My other favorite thing about the movie was the fact that at some point I realized the actor playing Cal was putting on like a master class of peak I'm in a 1950s science fiction movie acting.
I'm a man non-acting.
Yeah, basically. Like, you could just CGI that character into any sci-fi film from the 50s, and he wouldn't be out of place.
I thought you could replace him with a bar of soap.
You could do that, too, and it would be the same level of performance.
I did find it interesting, and this has to do with this island Earth, but I did find it interesting that his respect for the female scientists was pretty high. It's like, I'm
really thought you were going to say hot.
No, but the idea when they first met, when she came to pick him up, and it's like, oh, who's picking me up? She's pretty cute. But then he finds out she's like one of the great and then he finds out her name, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like, I know who you are. You're one of the greatest scientists and for the rest of the movie, he's in total respect of her and awe of her. And there was never really any moment where she was in awe of him necessarily.
What was there to be in awe of?
That's what I'm saying is with your that he was in complete man acting. They did rise above a little bit in the idea that because in a lot of those early 50s films about science maybe being bad, women were not respected, and her position in that group of scientists was pretty high. So I was kind of on board with that. I found that interesting.
Everything that you just said was completely undone by one line early in the movie where Cal is talking to his assistant, and they're talking about like a robot or something. Again, I was falling asleep, but he's talking about a housewife, and is like, well, she'll gain 20 pounds because the robot will be doing all the work for her.
Cal, you bitch.
Yes, but that's what
I
I'm
watched
saying.
this with Katie, and as soon as that line left that character's mouth, I like side-eyed her like, oh God, what's about to happen? And she just turned and looked at me like I will reach back in time 70 years.
That's what I'm saying is that with the female scientist, and I'm sorry, Chris, I don't know who.
You know,
the
my
actor
wife
is.
could use one of these around the house. A man.
But she elevated
Ruth Adams.
That's
Ruth the character's name.
Ruth Adams' character elevated that.
Dr. Ruth.
Now we're on. Okay, maybe I'm interested now. But
that's all the time we have.
But she elevates it. And, she has the damsel in distress when she's being changed by the mutant, who I loved.
Slacks and all.
And I did. It's like they got shortchanged because they should have been able to move faster and actually have a chance to do the damage they should have done.
Little known fact, listeners: Stan actually named his firstborn child Mustant.
Mustant, yes. Oh yeah, I forgot. I had a child. No, I don't.
So my favorite parts of the movie, aside from all of it, my first one is I enjoy the opening with Crow deciding he's going to tunnel back to Earth.
Love it.
From a satellite in space, because it has the line when he breaches the hull and everything's flying around. Oh, look at that! Breach hull, all die. Even had it underlined.
Yes.
And the line, like Crow has some really great lines in the movie. The other one in that scene is, well, I calculated the odds that this would work versus the odds that I was doing something incredibly stupid, and I went ahead anyway.
Yes, that was my favorite moment.
And then the entire scene where Mike flies the satellite into the Hubble. And the manipulator arms, I know you guys wouldn't know this, is a reference to the most infamous episode of MST3K, which is the one they did, Manos, the Hands of Fate.
I did notice that because there's a big plaque above the sign, or above the controls, that just says Manos.
And when he hits the button, it plays the theme from Manos briefly in the leitmotif. And the manipulator arms, he uses them to separate the satellite from the satellite, the telescope. And as he releases it and lets it go, it just drops and plummets to Earth, which shouldn't. Is like, well, how could that happen? It could.
I did appreciate that because that was my exact question right before Mike said it.
Gah! And then it just ends with them leaving as the bots chant, "Mike broke the Hubble, Mike broke the Hubble," and they riff their own credits.
Yes, they do. I wish I could remember a single name of one of the. Who was the most famous one that they gave the business to?
Oh, my favorite one was the winner and still photographer Mickey Keenitz.
Yes, it's sad that I forgot that because I was like, now there's a joke that I want to steal, honestly.
Oh, Bill Schwab. He's the guy who keeps attributing his faults to other people. Oh yeah, the projectionist.
Yes, that was also brilliant.
Then there was I forget what title he had, but there was the Amazing Rando.
Rando, yes, thank you.
Because that became a running bit.
Yes, Rando. Yeah, fun stuff.
They said ILM. Oh yeah, those are the people who sit in basements all day figuring out how to make elves disappear. I liked it.
I know, and I'm.
See, now I'm going to argue this is slightly more unfair because there's one of me this time and two of you.
I know. It's usually you versus me and Stan.
It'll be different for the next few episodes because at least after Wreck-It Ralph, I know you guys love the next two after that, so it'll be an easier conversation.
I love Wreck-It Ralph.
I know you do.
I've watched Wreck-It Ralph. I didn't dislike Wreck-It Ralph. I'm not going to come into that episode ready to shit on it.
This is past episodes coming back to haunt me.
Although now, I mean, if we want to keep the same level of intensity,
I really don't.
No, I'm going to come into Wreck-It Ralph just off the rails.
Please don't.
Wreck-It Ralph is riffable.
I don't know, though,
No.
Stan. Is it?
It is.
No, I
No.
think Wreck-It Ralph is too pure to be riffed on. And the message of Wreck-It Ralph is
shut
so
up.
timeless.
It's an animated film.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that animated films can't be riffed? Is that what you're trying to say? As though animated films are somehow lesser than live action films?
It depends on
what
the
kind of
animation.
implication
Depends on
are
the
you
animated film.
making?
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
We
so
should
it's
riff Grave of the Fireflies.
well, go ahead. I don't know what it is. So
Anyone who knows what that movie is gets it.
It's like, but
Which is an important thing to think
You can
about.
riff whatever. I won't
Because
be there.
early on in the show, when asked if Mystery Science Theater would be a hit, Joel Hodgson said, "Don't worry, the right people will get it." And that's what's helped it endure to this day.
As Stan and I are the wrong people.
Clearly.
But the thing is that this all started. I mean, I'm sure it's been riffed upon before.
This all started because
but Rocky
Dave
Horror
said,
Picture
"Hey
Show.
guys, we're gonna do
Rocky
something
Horror
special
Picture
this
Show.
year." I'm gonna stop you right there. I think that's a horrible way of riffing a movie. Do you know why? Because it's just people shouting en masse at a screen. Some of the lines that they've picked, yes, some of the lines have stuck, but it's just people constantly fucking shouting at a movie screen.
Hey, and throwing stuff at the movie screen.
It's the same problem with the room screenings too, because they do that during that as well. It's a hard stance, and I take it.
But it's the same.
This has been the episode of Hard Stances, let's be honest.
Which is not what you'd expect, would you?
From this group? No. What a weird episode this turned into be. Thank you, Chris. I didn't expect this to be so controversial.
I will fight you all in the parking lot.
All right, well that's the last of Chris's episodes.
I'm still showing up, so we'll see what happens.
We packed 4 episodes of drama into 51 minutes.
So we can just have fun with the rest of them, right?
Yeah, I don't know, unless Stan just thinks they're unriffable for some reason, in which case.
No, you said you can't riff on Wreck-It Ralph. Totally riffable, and I love it.
Oh, buddy. Okay.
It's not. I mean, honestly, it is sort of unriffable because of it's comedies are harder unless they are terrible comedies. Honestly.
Well, okay, I understand what you're saying there. Yeah, but
it's not undoable, but it would be difficult.
You're trying so hard to formulate a rebuttal.
I'm not sure how to.
Despite the fact that I have an emotional connection to that movie, it wouldn't be out of pocket to at least mock certain, to go after it a little bit. There's no problem.
I wouldn't riff upon it because it's like I'd be sitting there loving the film. So it's like, why would I want to take away from the moments I'm having with the film by riffing upon it?
When riffing's done right, it doesn't take away from a movie. Honestly, riffing helped me understand film criticism a little more, because a good riff will make you think, yeah, this is not working, or that is a weird thing to have happen at this moment.
That's what I missed in Mystery Science 3000, the movie, because the riffs didn't do anything to enhance the thought process of what they were watching.
For you.
Because yes, for me,
and I would. It's like, that's fine, because I would encourage you to go looking for other episodes that seem interesting to you.
right?
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. The funny thing about MST3K is that I forget who coined it. It was a website that I went to frequently, but it was a phrase I saw. It was like, your least favorite episode of Mystery Science Theater is someone's favorite episode, and vice versa. And because there are so many episodes they've done, and they've done everything from sci-fi to Western to
Birdemic.
That's riff tracks, not quite the same. But Mitchell. Mitchell is a crime drama.
I'm still never
going to forgive me?
I'm never going to forgive you for Birdemic. I will be on my deathbed, and I'm just going to grab you by the collar.
I didn't make it.
And just start shaking you for introducing me to that
that's just a tribute to how bad that movie is. If jokes couldn't save it,
they could not. Wow, the tension in Long Walk Studios, aka Kayfabe Outpost 1, is palpable. What an episode this has been. Thank you, Chris. I'm looking forward to seeing.
I think it's the podcast studio of love right now.
Well, we'll think on that and get back to you. All right. I'm still like flabbergasted by the direction that this episode took. So, Stan, if people want to reach out to you online, where can they do that at?
The Hubble.
Okay.
But Mike broke the Hubble.
Yes, reach out to Stan via Hubble telescope. Chris.
If you aim it right, you can probably burn a hole in his shirt or something.
Exactly.
Chris, if people want to reach out to you online, follow you
I don't know if I
online-
do. This got very heated.
Where's the heat?
It's in this area.
Where?
On your side of the room.
Why?
Who?
What?
Chicken butt.
Donkey.
K.
My Twitter handle is Chris the OK. I think that's
Kien. All right. And if you want to follow me online, the best.
Kietis.
Yes.
Da.
The best place. The best place to do that is on
Danke.
Instagram at DB
Bitte.
Hensley. If you want to keep up with Long Walk
Scheißkopf.
Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us or search for Long Walk Productions and Long Walk Podcast on Facebook. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on.
And explain why.
Konnichiwa.
Peace out.